Thank you so much for joining us today. Like, you are a legend, seriously. Like, every book I've read has your name in it, something that you said, the work you've done. And you've been helping people heal from cancer for like the last 4 decades, which
Yeah.
is huge. It's major.
What's kept me humble, when I
Hmm.
would come home and say to our 5 kids, "Oh, I'm going to get an award that's been given to, famous people." And they
Hmm.
would say, "I guess they've lowered their standards." And when I said, "I'm going to have a book written, call it Out of My Mind." But I mean, that's why, and I'll tell you, a lot of people said to me, which it never occurred to me, my wife and kids would be sitting in the audience. They're part of my life. They're my teachers. And people would say to me, "We know we can trust you." I said, "What are you talking about? Your family is sitting in front of you. And if you aren't living the message and the sermon, you wouldn't have them here listening to what you're saying." And that touched my heart because I realized how few of the experts ever have their relatives sitting in front of them listening. And you wonder, are they living what they're saying? Yeah.
Can we
But,
take it back to 1978?
yep.
That's when you started the exceptional cancer
Yeah.
patient.
I went to a meeting run by Carl Simonton, who had just written Getting Well Again to help cancer patients,
Mhm.
empower them. And it blew my mind. 150 people are sitting there. I am the only doctor in the room.
Mm.
See, he was considered crazy too. But I mean, to think that not one doctor who's treating cancer comes to learn anything, but all my patients were sitting around me. And I learned from that too. When I went back to the office, I put the desk against the wall. I didn't want to be separated from the people I'm taking care of. But the one who, rearranged my life, he was sitting next to me. She said, "You're a nice guy. I feel better when I'm in the office with you, but I can't take you home with me. So I need to know how to live between office visits."
Mhm.
And then that woke me up because when I offered 100 cancer patients a better chance of living, thinking 200 or 300 people would show up, which I don't know what I'm going to do with 10, no, it was 12 women. 12 women came in. And I thought, oh my God, I'm offering them a longer, better life. And nobody shows up because they're all so worried about doing it wrong, guilt, blame.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
the 12 women, as I say, became my teachers. Um, Even I keep smiling thinking about the groups. I had a 90-year-old lady who was, I mean, she's just wonderful. Living in her own home, had Yale students there, renting rooms because they loved being with her. It was like having a mother. And
Wow.
one day, and I asked her to join our group. I said, "You've been through everything, including cancer. Come and sit there. You can be a therapist." She said, "I don't know what I have to say, but fine, I'll come." So she's sitting there, and everybody's in a panic one day. I didn't know what the hell to do. I can't solve everybody's problem. So I turned to her, I said, "What are you afraid of?" And she sat there for 5 or 10 minutes. We were all sitting silently, waiting. And then she said, "Oh, I know what it is." "What is it?" "Driving on the parkway at night." And then the whole room burst out laughing. They're into all their panic, and the only thing that bothers her is driving on the parkway at night. So, but you see, as soon as everybody laughed, nobody was afraid anymore. Because I
Wow.
learned that too, that if people laugh, you can't be afraid.
One of the therapies that you do is drawings. Can you
Yeah.
talk about the power of drawings and how that helps like a patient heal, or for you to see like what's going on with them in their life?
See, well, even the Bible says God speaks through dreams and images. And our consciousness speaks through those symbols. In other words, when you go to bed at night and your mind is turned off, you're sleeping, then your consciousness can come forth. There's nothing interfering with it. And another way of saying it is, think of the ugly duckling. He doesn't walk around all day saying, "Oh, my mother, that rotten woman, look what she did to me." If he did, he'd never see his beauty on the still pond. So the still pond is like the symbol. Your mind is quiet, you can see the truth. Now, the drawings reveal that. But again, how did I learn this? Not in medical school or training. I went to a workshop that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was running because I needed help. And she was, counseling dying people. And I thought maybe I can get some help. And she said to me, Bernie, she has a Swiss accent, Bernie. She said, draw me a picture. So I drew an outdoor scene. It was a scene from my meditation with Carl Simonton when I created a picture, because I thought all this was nuts. I am an artist, so I am a visual person, but I thought all these things like closing your eyes and making pictures was nuts. But she said, draw a picture. So I drew this outdoor scene. And her first question was, why is 11 important to you? I said, I've been doing this work 11 months, but why'd you ask that? There are 11 trees in the drawing. What are you covering up? What are you talking about? Bernie, I gave you a white piece of paper. You used a white crayon to make snow on a mountain. Page is already white. You added a layer. What are you covering up? And it was all my feelings and emotions. When I say that, the portrait I painted of myself is as a surgeon with a mask and a cap. You don't know it's me. Now, if I painted myself today, I'd say, what are you, nuts? What's the point of painting your portrait if you're hidden? Yeah. But I did, yeah. And so I learned, again, that we're burying all this. And then coming across more of Jung's work, he interpreted a dream, diagnosed a cancer. Nobody's told that in medical school. Okay? And so I began, though, to go with a box of crayons around the hospital, saying to people, here, draw a picture for me. And I realized they often were revealing anatomy. But I began to see anatomy. And that was one of the things that I realized art therapists don't know anatomy. So they're treating the psychological aspect, but they don't see the person telling them what is wrong in their body. And I did. And and again, that's what converted people in the hospital from you being crazy to that's really fun and interesting. Because they bring a drawing in and pop it up, on the wall in the operating room instead of an x-ray, and everybody get fascinated by it. It could be from appendicitis to jaundice to whatever, And again, draw yourself in the operating room. One woman drew herself. She made just a black crayon, a box. She's lying on a table, not another person in the room. I said to her, don't have surgery. If that's what you conceive of, you should not have it. Mm-hmm. She said, well, I want it. I said, then you have to change your attitude about it. Picture yourself going to the hospital, having surgery, doing beautifully, going home, feeling fine, and do that 3 and 4 times a day. And a week later, she drew a picture for me again, and it's gorgeous. I mean, the room is filled with people caring for her in lovely, healthy colors. There's a window with God's light shining in. Her family's at the door. I'm not worried about you now. Go ahead. And let me give you an example from other doctors who have come to me. One stopped me in the hallway and said, I feel terrible. I said, what's the matter? The x-ray machine, radiation therapy machine, was repaired a month ago. I just did the routine monthly inspection. They never put the radioactive material back in. So I haven't treated anybody for a month. I said, are you a dumbbell? No, I'm not a dumbbell. Then why didn't you know that you weren't treating anybody? I said, it's obvious that they had tumors shrinking and acted as if they were being radiated, having side effects, red skin, other, issues. And I thought he was going to faint. He said, oh my God, you're right. See, I mean, it never occurred to him that they weren't being treated because they all acted as if they were.
Wow.
The other side of the coin also happened to me, because remember, like the oncologist I mentioned, the people at Yale got used to my crazy patients. That's what they called them, because they never behaved normally. And I got a call from a radiation therapist again. He said, Bernie, I thought the machine was broken. This lady has no reaction to radiation. But then I saw your name in the chart. So I knew she's a crazy patient. So I went in and I said, how come you don't have any reaction to radiation? And she said, I get out of the way and I let it go to my tumor.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's what converted doctors, not me, but the patients. So there are people who would draw the devil giving them poison, see, and somebody else would draw the same treatment as a gift from God. And
Mm-hmm.
who's had side effects, you know? And that's why I would say, why are you going if it's the devil giving you poison?
Yeah.
To change your mind or change your treatment, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. But
And
when you give your power away and let others tell you what to do, then that's trouble.
yeah. And about that, giving your power away, um, I know you've also talked about people living an authentic life,
Yeah.
um, and how that changes things as opposed to being someone who's just a submissive patient and living a life where you're actually living for others as opposed to following your heart. Can you talk about that and how
Yeah.
like
I love the line in the Bible. He who seeks to save his life will lose it. He who's willing to lose his life will save it. And I always have trouble with things like that, interpreting it. But I realize what they're saying is, and it has a lot to do with our childhoods. As a mother, I mean, how your parents treat you. And this one woman I was taking care of wrote, my mother's words were eating away at me and maybe gave me cancer. She told me I was a failure. I embarrassed her and dressed me in dark clothes so no one would notice me. And when she got cancer, she said, I became my authentic self. You gave me permission. I
mm,
said to her, you didn't need my permission, but it saved her life.
mhm,
She went out and bought clothes that were so, uh, I met her because she gave me a headache sitting in front of me because of the bright colors and clothes she was wearing. But then when I heard her story and knew why she bought those clothes, I was thrilled with what she was doing. So when you become who your parents want you to become, you lose your life.
mhm.
Okay? One lawyer, example, he said, I want to be a violinist. His parents said, no, we want a lawyer. So he became a lawyer. When he got cancer, was told he didn't have long to live. He started playing his violin, got a job in an orchestra, and didn't die. So you see, he saved his life. And when I say to an audience, I got identical twin sisters. One is submissive, always pleasing her parents, and the other one's a little devil who's doing all the things that interest her. Who's more likely to get breast cancer? And of course, everybody votes for the good kid, you know? And that's the part I've learned. I mean, all these memories come back. One little boy, he was sexually abused by his parents and their friends. He developed AIDS. And when I say that, he said he's sleeping in a room with no furniture. So he had to do favors if he wanted a TV set or a bed or. And then he called me one day and said, I'm committing suicide. I said, Tony, I know people in New York. I have mafia friends, which is true. I can get you a gun and we can kill your parents. And I never forget his answer. No, I never want to be like them.
Mm.
We all experience rejection. With rejection comes a desire for revenge. With revenge, guilt, and there is the story of mankind. See, you're abused by your parents. So what do? You go kill people. And then you feel guilty and you end up killing yourself or let the cops kill you.
Mhm.
Sad. See? And Tony said, no, I never want to be like them. The only person I've ever heard say that. And the wonderful thing, there are angels. Remind me to tell you about my angel. But he said, I'm going down the subway to jump in front of the A train and die. A few hours later, the phone rings and it's Tony. I said, what happened? He said, the train didn't show up. So I called the hotline number for suicide prevention and they came and rescued me and are giving me love.
Oh
Um,
God.
now think about that. Who delayed the train? You know?
Yeah.
And I think it's his angel.
Wow. So how can people who have been diagnosed with cancer, who may have don't know what it means to love themselves, how can they learn to love themselves?
Well, two different ways. One is to reparent yourself. And what I mean by that is you can put up pictures around the house of yourself and love that kid. I mean, I've had people say to me, my parents never took a picture of me as a kid. When I say you're worth loving, you have a baby picture. No, but put pictures up around the house. And when you walk by your own picture, I love you. See? I had a child who really taught me something. She was a suicidal teenager. And she said, "You're my CD." I said, "What are you talking about? I'm a CD. You're my chosen dad." And that's when I thought, wow, what a wonderful statement. I began to use it with other people. I'll be your CD. What do you mean? I'll be your chosen dad. And there are people alive today because I said that to them.
You've noticed that people who live longer lives are the ones who enjoy their lives. And you
Yeah.
also said that we should treat even people who are terminal like they're alive. And I
Right.
think it's so powerful because we automatically start treating people differently and stop doing things to live.
Let me just put it this way. The best hospices have dropouts and graduations. Why? Because people come in, let me help you get your life in order, your relationship with your children, and then people say, you know, I feel better. I'm going to go home for a while. Okay? If you keep telling people when you're going to die, yeah, they die. I mean, one man developed cataracts. He wanted to have his eyes fixed because he couldn't enjoy life anymore. His health plan said, you're going to be dead in 6 months of lung cancer. We're not going to spend money on a cataract surgery. He went home and died in a few days. He just went into his bedroom, laid down, and died. So I know that you can, like a light switch, you can turn off the switch and die. See, if you're ready. I mean, one family, think of this. The woman is being tube fed. And she was brain dead, basically. They wanted to take her to hospice and let her die. And the lawyer at hospice said, if you pull the tube out, you're murdering her. We're not going to accept that. And they called me for help. I said, look, I'll take the tube out, show up without a tube. But the lawyer knew what was happening and wouldn't admit her to hospice. Took her to the hospital, family standing around her bed. I said, tell her if she needs to go, it's okay. And they start crying. So I stood at the bedside. I said, look, your family's around the bed with you. And now she's in a coma, but people hear. You have to remember that. I said, the family's standing around the bed. They want you to know they love you and your love will stay with them. If you need to go, it's okay. She died in 15 minutes. And those are things I've seen over and over again. I said to people, you have 15 minutes to live, what would you do? And, you know, most people, I get on the phone, you know, and say, I love you. Well, I'm not going to spend my 15 minutes on the telephone making phone calls. But our little pipsqueak, you know, son said, I'd buy a quart of chocolate ice cream and eat it. And I love that. You know, see, there's the child speaking up. Let the child in you speak. Because I said to everybody, yeah, buy a chocolate, you know, what's your chocolate ice cream? It doesn't have to be literally be ice cream, but, you know, like all the stories I told you where people move, get a dog, become a violinist, you know, whatever it was that they wanted to do. And then they didn't die because they started living their chocolate ice cream.
Yeah, I think about that often too, about what would I do if I had 15 minutes or a year, which is very powerful because it makes me move differently. It makes me want to live a fuller life,
Right.
Which is very powerful because honestly, I always thought I was living a full life, but it wasn't until being diagnosed with cancer where I'm like, okay, I need to do everything I can to live the full life now and not like wait
Yeah.
anymore.
One lady with AIDS who was supposed to die put a note on her refrigerator. When you live in your heart, magic happens. And I heard a country western song where it says, let your heart make up your mind. That's what you have to do. Say,
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Love your life. Love your body. I had one person, all these memories come back when we start, we keep talking. She had polio as a child, so didn't like her body because it had, the muscle, it wasn't symmetry, she looked funny in some way. And then she developed a disease called Guillain-Barré disease, where you become paralyzed basically and die. And she said to me, she laid down in front of a mirror naked because she didn't want to die hating her body. And she started loving her body literally inch by inch. She would start from her toes and work her way up. And of course, she didn't die. She went into remission. It's understanding faith. I mean, I've had patients go home to die and come back without cancer. What'd you do? I left my troubles to God. That's an exact word. Conscientious objector. The doctor said, I'm going to kill your cancer. I don't kill anything. He lived for 12 years doing all kinds of different things, But what if the doctor had said, here, let me make you well? I don't think he would have had a problem with
Right.
the treatment. Yeah.
Right.
So we
And
have
why
to.
do doctors, you, they don't ask us like, what are we doing outside of that? Like my doctors never, ever, ever ask me that. What am I doing outside of like treatment? They say, oh, go travel, but they never ask me how I'm really doing and what am I doing because they're baffled.
Journal of your feelings. And as my wife said to me, there's nothing funny in your journal. I said, my life is not funny. And then she told me so many stories that had the family laughing that happened at the hospital, crazy things that happened. But I never remembered them and put them in my journal. So make notes of what happens and include the things that make you smile. And then write them so it's not stored inside of you. See, that's the benefit of a journal. That's the benefit of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
That a good therapist just goes, that's all. And you let the person talk for an hour or two. And at the end of that, they say, you've been a big help, thank you. And you haven't said a damn thing. I mean, I've had people say to me, that's the greatest conversation I ever had with anyone. And I never said anything except, yeah, oh my. I mean, it blew my mind when she made that comment. But see, she's talking to herself, hears herself, knows what she needs to do.
Yeah.
And so we need to listen to ourselves. And that's why it's asking for help as well as giving help. I mean, you're doing the right thing. So you can say yes or you can say no. And other people have a right to do that too, and then it's your life.
I know that you're really big on meditation. Can you talk about the power of meditation and
Yeah,
how
when you quiet your mind, it makes an enormous difference. Even in the operating room, I would play music and talk to the patients. And at first, everybody thought he's nuts. The patient's anesthetized. What's the point of talking? But they woke up and they knew what I had talked about. I mean, sometimes they would say something and everybody knew, oh, that's because of what he said. So they knew they had heard me, even if they didn't remember that word for word, but, they knew it was related to it. And the nurses were the ones who said to me, your patients refuse pain medication. I said, what are you talking about? They refuse medication after their operation. I said, ever occur to you they're not hurting? So the meditation turned it into a different experience. That you wake up comfortable, thirsty, and hungry. I used to say that until I realized hungry is not good because they can't stop eating. I mean it. They really went home and were gaining weight. So, I'd say you'll feel hungry, so they didn't have nausea from all the drugs, but you won't finish what's on your plate. Then nobody had a problem. But it showed up in their post-operative course. So they would go home sooner. They'd be free of pain, all of those things. I'll close with this. I always say read fiction if you want to learn the truth. Now you'd say, how does fiction have truth? authors write the truth. They change the characters. They see things in life. They write about it. In Solzhenitsyn's book, Cancer Ward, he talks about self-induced healing. One of the men says, look, it says in his book, there are cases of self-induced healing. That struck me because doctors talk about spontaneous remissions. Mm-hmm. You go back to your doctor and he says, oh my God, you don't have cancer. You've had a spontaneous remission. Why don't you ask me what I did? And he says, self-induced healing flutters out of the book like a rainbow-colored butterfly, and they all held up their cheeks for its healing touch as it flew past. When I read that, it said so much. The rainbow is your life in order. See, every color is where it belongs. What's a butterfly? The symbol of transformation. The caterpillar breaks out of the cocoon, becomes a butterfly. So you transform your life, find harmony, and guess what happens? See, your life is extended, your disease disappears. Oh, yeah. And that's the formula. Find harmony through change.
Thank you so much, Bernie, for doing this interview with me today and for sharing all of your wisdom and stories over the past 4 decades plus.